Hello and welcome to Manibil. This is part 34 of my deconstruction of Keith Frankish's lecture series on illusionism. And I did have attempted a first recording session just before this, and I had a little trouble with my camera. It switched off, so I'm hoping this is going to last this time. And it doesn't really matter that the camera didn't work before if it works now, so it doesn't matter for this recording, but never mind. If there's some weirdness to this, it might be because of something in my camera, not camera software, I suppose. It seems fine now, so let's head into to the next bit of the lecture 4, Objections to Illusionism.
Qualities at all. For the illusionist to seem to perceive something, to seem to perceive the egg, is just to be in an informational and reactive state similar to the one of actually perceiving it. So your sensory systems are being stimulated in the way that they would be by the actual thing, and all the corresponding reactions and reactive dispositions are being triggered, and that's what's happening. No inner show. And similarly, to seem to introspect something would involve the same thing happening at the second level of experience. So it would be to be in an informational reactive state similar to that of actually introspecting it. So your introspective systems are being stimulated and generating reactions that would be similar to those that would have been produced by actually introspecting a phenomenal field. The same effects are being produced as would have been produced by the real thing. The same.
I'll have to admit, I don't know what he's saying here. I can't follow him. I'm sort of so confused about his way of presenting it that I'm having a hard time deconstructing, because I'm not sure actually what he's trying to say. And these words he's lumping in that sort of are lost in translation or lost in meaning. So it's like, and I'm not comfortable with the term seem, because that's just a word he attaches in order to create some kind of doubt in the listener, in my opinion. Because there's nothing that is seeming about my experience of, like, blue, for instance, right? I'm looking at something that is blue at the moment, and is it seeming blue? What would that mean, right? So it's blue is a statement about my qualia, right? Seeming blue, but why would I say that, right? So it's sort of a linguistic trick, or rhetorical trick, maybe you could say, right? In order to give you a certain sense of doubt about experience that hooks you in with his story, right? I can't see it any other way, because I don't care about all these additional words he attaches to this philosophy of his. To seem to perceive something, well, is qualia something, right? Is to be, so a sort of existence is being an informational reactive state similar to that of actually perceiving it. So, I mean, taking that sentence alone is conditional, right? It depends on the rest of the show, so to say. And I can't encompass all of what has been said in order to understand this particular sentence here, right? So there are so many loose ends in this description of his that I lose the foundations of what we're doing, or what he's doing, right? So I reject it, right? And I can only at this point cherry pick certain statements that is sort of simple philosophical misgivings or anything like that. Sort of the broader picture of what it's doing, I'm lost in concepts and ideas and terms and so on. I'm not buying it, right? Even if it ultimately is correct, he's just bad at showing it to me or explaining it to me, right? But that alone is enough for me to say, I can't buy this. I'm not going there, right? so apparently, basically, it seems to contradict what I consider good philosophy, right? So I'm sticking to my philosophy, and I mean, it's this balance in which I would like you to think about, right? I would like you to, I would encourage you to think that, well, if I as a philosopher, right, or that being you or some whoever, right, if I am feeling I have to accept somebody else's philosophy, what am I basing that on if I don't have a sufficient philosophy of my own, right? So if I don't have a philosophy of my own, I can't I don't have anything to validate, or I have very little maybe to validate somebody else's philosophy. And that should be a philosophy or a lack of philosophy that helps you say, I shouldn't any just trust anybody just out of them claiming to have done some philosophy. But that's the weakness, because your lack of philosophy is what implicitly enables you to just more easily accept somebody else's philosophy, right? So there's a problem there, that my lack of philosophy is enabling me to eat somebody else's crap philosophy, right? Or more likely or more easily, right? The better I get solidify my own and make it comprehensible to myself, and so on, right? And maybe not comprehensible, but I mean, the more complete and more coherent and things hang together and so on, the more solid my philosophy is, and less likely it is that I'm going to be convinced by somebody else having some different kind of philosophy about the same kind of aspects, right? So before you get to that point where you don't have that kind of solid philosophy of your own, all else equal, you are more likely to buy somebody else's weird philosophy. And maybe because your philosophy is weak, that those weaknesses enables you to more easily buy somebody else's philosophy. Okay, I don't want to go on, but I hope you get what I'm trying to get at, right? And my example from myself or my own, journey in this regard is that in the early days I was inspired to be philosophical, or go philosophy, all in on philosophy, from Stefan Molyneux, from listening to some of his YouTube shows, right? And later I found out that he's a crap philosopher, right? But in the early days, because he was different than most all this I've heard, right? I was sort of buying more hook, line, and sinker that I ought to. But that was because I didn't have any philosophy, right? So I just eating it raw, so to say. And at some point, I tipped over and sort of now I'm solidified in my own philosophy. And further I go down the road of my own philosophy, I am more and more able to pinpoint others' bad philosophy or contradictory philosophy, right? Because you might create some axioms or definitions from your philosophy that we agree upon, but we might not agree upon the definitions or the axioms. But because they are not philosophically argued or reasoned towards, they are settled by decision. I decide to accept this as an axiom, right? And I can go along with it or I cannot go along with it, right? But I can't say they're necessarily bad axioms because they are decided. They are not argued or based. If they're based on some philosophy and say, okay, because of my philosophy this way, I'm doing with this axiom. And when I then look at the philosophy and see it's contradictory and it doesn't hang together and it's badly argued, whatever, right? I can say, okay, then on that ground, I don't trust your axiom. But if it's a good philosophy, I can't find any holes in it, and maybe it aligns with my own philosophy, it's just an axiom I won't agree with, and won't go along with. I can't say it's a bad axiom, right? It's just not an axiom I'm willing to go with. So at this end of philosophy, as there seems to be nobody here, right? I'm alone with this kind of approach to philosophy. And that's why I'm a very big proponent of everybody thinking for themselves, right? Because if you don't think for yourself, you will end up in that situation where you're buying somebody else's crappy philosophy because you don't have one of your own. And you're very likely going to cherry pick something that aligns with your preconceived ideas or your education or your upbringing or whatever bullshit you're believing in that you might not have sorted out in the sort of Socratic fashion of, the unexamined life is not worth living, right? And that's why I'm doing this channel. I am presenting my own ability to do philosophy, right? To encourage other people to do the same. I'm very open about, I'm not in this for the money. I'm not in it for academia. I'm not in it for anything but the sheer pleasure of doing my own philosophy, right? And I would encourage anybody to do the same thing. But when you look at when I look at people around me, when I see people who have been mind-fucked, right, into submission, they are zombies. They are philosophical zombies, in the sense that they have no will of their own, right? They have no will to think for themselves. They are almost like scared of thinking for themselves. That's why something like the COVID vaccination scenario can occur. It's only among people human beings that a thing like that can occur on this kind of global scale. It is fucking scary to me, right? How little people think for themselves. When some particular people tell them what the truth is, or what knowledge is, or how this scenario is, they are just eating it fucking raw, right? And putting their own ability to think for themselves, or be critical, or skeptical, or doubtful to the side, and just obeying their fucking masters. If the 20th century showed you anything, it is, don't do as your fucking masters tell you, right? Oh, man. And this is why I am so hung up on philosophy. Because, in my opinion, it's an appeal to people to think for themselves, right? That's why I'm here. That's what I'm doing, right? I won't give you any answers. I refuse to give you any answers. And if you think what I'm saying here and there and the other place is giving you an answer, please don't take it as an answer. Think for yourself, right? Okay, enough of that rant.
Informational and reactive processes. So again, we can illustrate this with our diagram. So here, this is the illusionist view of illusion, of seeming. Ignore the inner Cartesian theory at the moment. Just concentrate on the red and green arrows and the egg. So, to have an illusion of something is to undergo perceptual and reactive processes similar to those we would undergo if the thing were real. So here the thing's real, and we're undergoing these perceptual and reactive processes.
Again, what is that? Fried egg on the table or whatever outside that brain, right? If it's outside the brain, you can't experience it, right? Yeah, you might say that I can experience something that is outside somebody else's brain. But that's just your mental picture of whatever that situation is, right? So either you are experiencing the egg outside the mind where you can't see that egg inside, or you are having the experience of egg inside your mind, and then you have no access to that outside, right? You can't have it both ways. These are abstractions. You can't base your philosophy on an abstraction, because abstractions arrive through qualia, right? So you're using an abstraction that have arrived from qualia in order to refute qualia. Okay? You see, that's a huge circular begging the question scenario you're arguing from, right? This materialist metaphysics is dysfunctional. This doesn't work. This is incorrect. You can't have it this way, right? You can only say, I have an experience inside my... If you are working from the axiom of an inside-outside dichotomy, right? Then you're saying, okay, if there's an outside, I can never get to that, whatever that outside is. And if there is an outside thing, the thing itself, it is not like that inner experience of a fried egg, right? Because the fried egg is a mental experience. It is not the thing itself. So you're saying, okay, so something arrived from the outside, but it's not the thing itself, because it's not the elephant or this fried egg is not traveling through my eyes and representing it, recomposing itself into a fried egg that is one-to-one with a fried egg outside my mind. That would be ridiculous. So it's sort of, it's creating a one-to-one copy of itself, and one of the copies is traveling through your eyes in order to be inside your mind. And if there are 8 billion people in the world, then that fried egg is making 8 billion different copies if all 8 billion are looking at that fried egg, right? And if you turn around and the fried egg is not there, does the fried egg travel back through your eyes out into the fried egg outside? Or what? What is going on there, right? You do not have access to that thing outside your mind, right? And if you say there's something outside your mind which is based on, then whatever it is based on, you do not have access to, right? You're just saying, okay, whatever it is out there is exactly the same as my experience of it, right? So you're basically saying, in a scenario where you only have a photograph of something you call the moon, then you are saying the photograph of the moon is the moon. Right? That doesn't work.
Processes marked by the red and green arrows. And if the thing isn't real, and we're just seeming to see it, we're under the illusion of seeing it, what's happening is that those perceptual and reactive processes are occurring just the same, even though the thing isn't there. That's all that's happening.
But how the hell does he get to whether or not the thing is there or not? I mean, this is beyond belief that he is so ignorant of good philosophy, right? He can, those inside things that he actually have access to, his qualia, that is sort of, that's very fluffy and, we don't know if it's there or not. But he can apparently tell you whether or not that which is outside his mind is there or not. That's just, that's how it is, right? That is craziness. That's the craziness of the materialist paradoxical metaphysics. It doesn't work, right? It simply is incoherent. It's self-contradictory, or which is another way of saying a paradox, in my opinion, or might be, right? Okay.
So what about having the illusion of a show in a Cartesian theatre? Well, that's...
But you can't use an illusion to argue for illusion. That's circular, right? What if it's an illusion? Yeah, then it's an illusion. Well, yeah, but that doesn't explain, right? It's like saying murder is wrong. Yes, of course it's wrong, because it's a wrong kind of killing. So of course it's wrong. It's a part of the definition. What I need to know is, how do you get to wrongness, right? And it's this, well, if you say it's an illusion and it's a seeming, then it's an illusion. Therefore, I proved it's an illusion. No, you're just attaching the words you need to attach in order to connect the dots you want to connect them, the way you want to connect them. It's incredible that this guy is allowed to be called a professor of philosophy. Somebody stop him, man, right?
To undergo, that's when the thing itself isn't there, when there really isn't a Cartesian theatre with a show in it. So to have an illusion of a show in a Cartesian theatre is to undergo introspective and reactive processes similar to those we would undergo if there were a Cartesian theatre. So it's going to be getting patterns of information that generate reactions that would be appropriate if there were something like a show there. It's to have informational processes that make us judge that there's a show there and react in other ways as if there's a show there. And there's no incoherence here, there's no regress, there's no basis for the objection. Okay, here's another objection that is somewhat similar. I've called it the higher order seeming objection. It goes like this. It focuses on the idea of seeming to seem. Let me explain. The realist might say something like this. Look, the illusionist thinks that we should doubt our experience reports, our introspective experience reports.
Why do we need to call it reports? Why not just experience? There's no our experience report. There's my report and your report. There's my experience and your experience. There's no our experience, right? And this sort of collective fallacy is also inflicting upon itself. I know that the language is limited in the way we and now I said we again, right? But it's an appeal to, I'm not only talking to myself, I'm talking to whatever, you, and you out there. So I'm saying we, okay? But I'm not talking from a PowerPoint show, which I could make sure is very precise in its formulation. I'm just commenting on the fly. So that I have to be maybe a little more, inclusive of, there might be something that is mispronounced, and English is not my first language, and so on, right? Okay. But illusionists thinks that we should doubt our experience reports. Okay, so he should doubt his report, but not the experience, right? It's like he's not accepting any kind of experience unless you report it. You say, read, right? I know that in order to get to some kind of objectivity in my philosophy, you need to propose something, right? But I'm not proposing red. I'm proposing, for instance, elephant or bicycle, right? So what I'm proposing or making propositions about are the cognitions, the concepts, elephant, bicycle, or so on. It's not red or sweet or sour or trumpet sound or whatever, right? So what you're talking about when you talk about qualia, you're not talking about elephants, bicycles, and so on. These are cognitions among the qualia, right? And what you try to call an illusions are qualia, at least in some fashion that I'm not quite certain about, right? Quite sure about. So what is it about this reporting? I don't get it, because I can sit on a deserted island and being mute for all that I care, right? And not expressing any kind of report. I should be able to use my experience, right? Why would I not open my eye? I mean, my ears are always open, right? It's like whenever my eyes, the ears have to be open all the time. The ears doesn't close down, right? They don't close down. I wake up in the middle of the night because of some sound, right? It's not because I saw something. It's because I heard something, right? So what is it? I don't understand his thinking here, right? He's not trying to refute something based on a report, because a report might be a lie. Reports are sounds, another aspect of it, right? So you have to trust the sound in order to get the report. Or maybe it's a written, but let's just say, it was before, we had if we can't have any writing, we have to talk to each other and report using sound. Sound is a qualia. I mean, oh man.
We shouldn't take them as unrevisable data. We should be prepared to reinterpret them and correct them, and maybe dismiss some of them. But we can't do that. We can't doubt our own experience reports, since experience reports already build in as much doubt as is possible. look at it like this. I suppose I'm looking at something, and I say, "Look, there's this big red patch there in front of me," and you say, "Well, are you sure? I mean, the lighting's very funny in here. Actually, maybe it's not red at all." And I say, "Well, maybe it isn't, but there certainly seems to be a red patch there."
But why do you need to discuss it with somebody else? Why are you always creating a scenario where you have to discuss your experiences? And it might just be a crazy person trying to fool you into not trusting whatever. This red patch is him having killed the taxpayer, right? Or the tax collector. He said, no, that's not a red patch. And if he can convince you it's not a red patch, he might get away with murder, right? I mean, all this reporting shit, get it out of my face, right? If you can't trust your qualia, in my opinion, you can't fucking trust anything. Because everything always reduces into qualia. If you try this at home, right? Try to define some whatever thing. Try to define it. And the words you use for that definition, try to define those. And those words, you try to define those. And keep going with the definitions until you end up at some point where you can't define it anymore. I bet you will end up with the qualia. You will end up with sound or color or taste or so on, right? And then you can't go any further because you do not have anything any further, right? Everything else arrives from the qualia, whatever it is, right? Maybe not the actual qualia in this moment, but a theory is that your memory or your genes and your DNA and your emotional or whatever have all come from some kind. Your mommy yelled at you, right? Qualia, right? Somebody saying I love you, right? Qualia. It's an interpretation. It's a language and so on, but it's still based on qualia, right? It comes back to the sound. It all ends there, right? It all reduces down to qualia. And there he sits, this moron, trying to create doubt in your mind about qualia, right? Don't buy it, man. I mean, I'm not going to tell you what to do, right? Be careful. Be careful with this, right?
I'm having an experience as of a red patch. So I've retreated from the stronger claim that there is a red patch to the more cautious claim, more epistemically cautious claim that there seems to be a red patch. Okay. I'm trying to.
How does he get to seem, other than he's just throwing in a word, or somebody else, based on qualia, which is somebody reporting to him, say, hey, I have a report. You have to listen to my qualia and interpret those qualia in order to become doubtful about your experience. So now it seems there's a red patch, right? These reports are actually sophistry, rather, right? That is there to create doubt in you, right? So you can be thrown around by your masters, apparently, right? Because at the end of the day, the money he gets is ultimately based on a system that, what's the word I'm looking extorts money from people in order to pay academics, right? If there weren't any state or government in order to create a subsidized academic class, I'm concerned. I would very much think that a guy like Keith Frankish, he wouldn't have a professorship, right? He wouldn't have somebody paying his shit, right? Because you would have to be more in line with what people want to pay for, right? They wouldn't pay for shit like this, right? It's because it fits with a corrupt academic gatekeeping class who keeps the little people away from them and saying, you're too stupid to understand this, right? He's one of those who can create all these smoke and mirrors that keeps normal people away from the academic class, right? And doesn't challenge them. Because then they can always say, yeah. It seems like, right? Little you. It seems like, but it's not necessarily other than an illusion, right? So go pay your taxes.
To describe my epistemic situation, as it were, my situation with regard to my knowledge of what's around me, I
There's a report. Pay your fucking taxes.
start with quite a bold claim about what's out there, and I retreat to a more cautious claim about my experience. But that's as far as I go. If you say to me, yes, but are you sure that it seems to you that there's a red patch? I've nowhere to go now. I can't. There's no considerations that I could draw on to.
But you did have the experience of red, you moron, right? Why are you putting so much emphasis on a sound that you interpret as a report about whatever this patch is? Why are you trusting that more than your direct experience of red, right? This is an appeal to sophistry, right? Oh, yes, there's an academic who told me I should doubt this, so I better doubt it because I got a report, right? Fuck off, man, with this shit.
To make me doubt that it seems to me. I just kind of attend to my experience, and I'm inclined to say, yes, it seems that there's a red patch, and that's it. There's nothing you can say to me.
So if he was sitting on alone on an island and he had an experience of red patch, would he start to sit and wait for somebody else to report it to something to him? Or would he just by his own accord say, well, I have been trained to understand it as it seems there's a red patch, right? So now I have to doubt the red patch, right? If he's sitting there, yes, this red patch might be a tiger, but it seems like it's a red patch. So it seems like it might not be a tiger, right? Fuck off, man, right?
Me, really, all that I can say to myself.
It seems like this report about, give me your tax money, right? Seems like but it's not real. It might be an illusion that there's somebody who wants my money. So I'm just going to not pay taxes, right?
Myself that might lead me to qualify that claim, or I don't really have the vocabulary to qualify it. How would I to say that it?
Well, whatever you do, whatever sounds you make with your throat, right, has no bearing whether or not there's something to that red experience or not. It doesn't work. You're tangled up in this academic, polemic of some kind, right? If you have an experience of red, you have an experience of red, right? What you do with it is your decision. But if you have an experience of red, you can't just say, you can doubt it all you want, I guess. But why would you, right? Why would you? Then you have to doubt everything. There's none of it that is trustworthy, right? So why should I trust your presentation here, right? So I can't trust the qualia, but apparently I can trust my interpretation of the qualia. I can call it a presentation, okay? But it's just sounds and colors and feels and so on, right? Shouldn't I trust that? If I don't trust that, how could I trust my interpretation that is a presentation of philosophical nature? I just don't get it, man, right? It's like he's having his cake and eating it too, right?
Should I say that it seems to me there's a red patch?
Oh, man, right? Oh, man, oh. It seems to seem.
That's not the sort of thing we say, and it's not clear what it means. Really. The illusionist suggestion here that we could doubt our experience reports doesn't seem to make much sense. It doesn't seem to fit into any way we have of criticizing or qualifying our own experience reports. The claim that there seems to be a red patch there, it seems to me that there's a red patch there, that's as far as I can go. That expresses all the epistemic caution that's possible or necessary, it seems. That's just where I stop. So the illusionist wants us to go further, and there doesn't seem to be anywhere to go. So how does the illusionist respond to that? Well, the illusionist can concede some of this. It's perfectly true that we've no procedure for correct...
Careful when somebody uses the term true, right? True has nothing to do in metaphysics, in my opinion. True is about knowledge, right? True is a... What's the word I'm looking for? A conclusion from a proposition, right? There's nothing else that it can be. True is derived from knowledge. You can't just say, well, it's true that this... Him just throwing the term true out of nowhere like this, right? It tells me everything I need to know about how bad he is at doing philosophy, right? And he has a pet subject about illusions, about the qualia and illusions. This is my life's work, right? It's just if somebody saying they are interested in cars, but the only thing they're interested in how to create, the windscreen, right? Or the steering wheel. They are experts or claiming to be expert in steering wheels, and then they say they are professors in cars, right? But they're only interested in steering wheels. And I would say, no, then you're not a professor of cars, right? Then you might be a sort of a professor of qualia, right? In this case, I don't buy it, right? This true thing, be very careful, right? Be very careful when people, and particularly philosophers, right? They throw around the term true. True is sort of this, you can't, if it's true, you can't challenge it, as that's what follows from using the term true. It is true. Well, then don't challenge it. It's because he said it's true, right? But what is it that is true? That we have no procedure. So it's something that isn't there that is true. Bullshit, man, right? No, only propositions can be true. They can also be false, but those are the things that can be true, right? So it has to be propositional. And in my opinion, what entails it being a proposition is it is a reference to a concept like elephant or car or something like that. Something that is cognized among your qualia. A lack of a procedure is not something that can be propositional. And using that is something, using the term true, you have to have settled both metaphysics, epistemology, and what it means to be objective, in my opinion. Otherwise, you're reporting something to somebody else without having a clear definition of what you mean by objective. And if it's not objective and it's purely subjective, why are you reporting? Because it's only concerning yourself, right? So it's a load of crap, this.
Experience reports, when they're made attentively, we might say to the person, well, are you sure that it seems that way? Just pay attention to your experience a bit more. And we might, of course, I want to check that the person's being sincere and not trying to deceive us. But if we're satisfied that they've made this report carefully and attentively and that they're not trying to deceive us, then we just accept it. We treat it as authoritative.
Authoritative. If somebody with a title tells you, your masters say to you, this is true, it's an authority. Do as you're told, right? I will bet you my fucking bottom dollar, what's my straw at, that this guy is a half-assed communist, right? These type of people who appeal to authority, they are usually some kind of socialist, communist, something like that, right? Now, it maybe have no bearing on this, whether or not it's interesting, this kind of argumentation. But come on, man. This is just smoke and mirrors, right? I cannot find any coherent philosophy anywhere in this, right? And he's basically saying he's appealing to authority now, right? Which is a fallacy. Somebody told me, right? Somebody told me there's a pandemic, so I'm going to get my boosters, right? Fuck off, man. You are gatekeeping good philosophy. You are keeping good philosophy away from humanity, you could say, right? You are keeping people subdued into, you have to accept what your masters tell you, right? Fuck off, man.
We have no procedure for correcting other people's reports or correcting our or qualifying our own experience reports. We just accept them.
We just get me a fucking break, right? Speak for yourself, Keith Frankish, right? We just do this. No, we don't just do this, right? 1930s Berlin, right? We just do as the Nazis tell us to do, right? Why not? What's the difference? There is no difference.
Such reports are the best we can do. If you ask me to describe my my perceptual situation, that's the best I can do, and I've just got to stop. But it still doesn't follow from that these reports are guaranteed to be accurate. The fact that we can't do any more doesn't show that we've achieved perfect accuracy. Here's how I like to put it, that being cautious about the external world, being cautious about expressing caution about what's out there in the external world, whether there really is a red patch out there, doesn't automatically make you authoritative about an internal world. Seeming to see a red patch out there isn't the same as infallibly introspecting some mental reddishness. Or at least it may not be the same. It's possible that it's not the same, as the illusionist wants to say. So our first-person introspective reports, they take us to the limits of what we can say about our situation. But it doesn't follow that they take us to a completely accurate description of some internal reality. There's nothing more we can say, but it may be that there is a lot more that could be said by neuroscience, say. These are just our limits as unaided introspectors. So is it wrong then to treat experience reports as authoritative? Well, it depends on how what we mean by that, what we take that authority to involve. If we take it to mean that they are completely accurate descriptions of a private internal, of a private mental world that's known only to the introspector, then the illusionist is going to say, no, we shouldn't treat them as authoritative in that sense. There, with that report, the person themselves has reached the limit of what they can say, and has no way of correcting it, but it doesn't follow that it's accurate, and then we may have many ways of doing better by interpreting what they've said in the light of neuroscientific theory. A theory of the processes that are actually occurring within their brains, and that they are the processes that are actually occurring in their brains, in which they are indirectly describing to us through this vocabulary, through this phenomenal vocabulary. But
so it's sort of the ghost in the machine thing here. You're just there's just a weird ghosty thing that is you, that is sort of a passive, audience to, or a passing onlooker to this weird goings on of the scientific external world is just, it's passing through and you can see it, but it's just you're having an illusory experience that is not connected with that real world, right? It's just sort of a fancy, photographic movie, something that is just passing through, and it has no bearing on anything, right? At this point, that's how I see his way of doing it, right? You're just the experience you have. You're just this superhighway, of reality passing through you, and there's just some onlooker experience that has no bearing on what's going on there, right? It's this, causality of, an endless chain of causality that you can't influence. So he's basically, I think, he's probably somebody who doesn't support any kind of free will. He's a determinist, I would think, right? I would like to, I guess I would not care too much, but I would hazard a guess that he's a determinist, right?
I think of phenomenal reports, experience reports, as characterizing something more like a fictional world, a theoretical fiction created through the reporter's introspective activity. Then we can treat them as authoritative. They are telling us how it seems to be with them, and they are creating a picture of this internal world they seem to be confronted with. And it's the fact that they're inclined to describe it in that way is very interesting, and they can have complete authority to fill in all the details in whatever way seems natural to them. And the fact that it seems natural to describe the world in that way and to characterize the fiction and to characterize this world in that way is very important and useful information about what is really happening, because there are real processes, real introspective processes that are prompting this description. The mistake would be to treat the description as being wholly accurate. We need to interpret it. We need to adopt the heterophenomenological attitude to it. And
so I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but he says the qualia is my understanding of the qualia, and there's some qualia out there that's a part of reality that is not necessarily the same as my qualia, my experiential phenomenal qualia, something. But when I report from them, that is valid. The report of my interpretations of them. I mean, how does he do this, right? I mean, it's like saying bicycles don't really exist. But if you want to ride a bike to the grocery store, it's okay. Correct me if I got it wrong, because I'm halfway out of this, right? So there are too many weird dots to connect for me to be able to deconstruct this completely coherently, right, or deeply. But I mean, when I try to condense it, what we are actually dealing with in something that could be maybe stated in 15 minutes or 20 minutes, that's what I'm getting to. Something like these, the superhighway analogy from before, and this kind of trying to say this is not valid, but my interpretation from what is invalid is valid, and then I can report to somebody else and be an authority about it, right? Oh man, how can he, square these circles this way without saying this can? I mean, I guess it's because people, enforces him, or what's it called? They encourage him, right? Yeah. Great philosophy. You will get a professorship. Yeah, you can eat all the pickles you want down in Crete, and you will get to Moscow Center of Consciousness, and you can create a 10-hour lecture series on this. And he might think, holy shit, I'm good at this, right? It's a great philosophy, man. They love me. Right?
try to see the real picture that underlies that fiction. The fiction does have some basis in reality. It's not created on the basis of nothing. There are real introspective processes that are prompting this description, but the description is cast in a fictional form, which is the best we can do, given the limits of introspection.
I was just thinking, what kind of woman would marry a guy like this? Would live with a guy like this? Right? How can they go to the opera or anything like that and enjoy the qualia, right? Or food or whatever, right? And I mean, she must be in love with his professor wage rather than the person. Or she is as crazy as he is, right? It's just I'm just like thinking out of just riffing here, right? It's like the world is run by crazy people sometimes, right? It's not sometimes. It's mostly all the time. I have this sense. The world is run by fucking crazy people. People who don't understand they're fucking crazy, who think they're brilliant, right? It seems like they are pushed forward to tell everybody else how smart they are and they should listen to their authoritative reports, right? Oh man, that's a long way home.
So since the subject is describing how it seems to them, how they're disposed to characterize their internal world, then of course we allow them authority over that. No one can say better how they're inclined to describe their own internal world than them. So we let them give the characterization. We just don't treat it as necessarily accurate. The description they give needs to be interpreted in the light of wider theory from, or in the light of information from all branches of the cognitive sciences. Okay, so we can allow that that experience reports are.
Get to the fucking point, man. Oh. It's like he's spending 10 minutes just. Oh man, it's annoying. I'm trying to deconstruct this, mate, right? Give me a fucking chance. Oh.
Are authoritative, but only authoritative descriptions of an inner world, but only if we think of those inner worlds as notional constructions from the judgments as a kind of theoretical.
And this kind of description, right? We are, speak for yourself, right? Don't tell me what I am, right? Speak for yourself, please. Okay. We are, then I would change it maybe to say, I am authority about my inner world only because it is notional, it's a notional construction. What it says here? Notional construction from my judgment. What the hell does that mean, right? So in trying to discuss the idea of qualia being some kind of illusion, he needs to bring in all these terms to convolute or it's like it bloats the philosophy, right? And bloating philosophy is always, in my opinion, a sign that fundamental philosophy hasn't been done rigidly and correctly, right? If you you need to keep adding words to your description of what you're trying to do, then you haven't done it rightly, right? Correctly. We are authoritative about our inner worlds only because they are notional constructions from our judgments. What the hell in hell does that even mean, right? How does that relate to qualia and the idea of those being illusions, right? It doesn't work, this.
Fiction constructed in the course of making these judgments, these phenomenal reports and judgments. So that's the response then to the higher order seeming objection, the objection that it's incoherent to talk of seeming to seem. It's
and why the hell do we need Arthur Conan Doyle, the well-known author of Sherlock Holmes stories? But what the hell is that doing there, right? Why do I need that qualia, right? So you're screwing with my mind and qualia. You're trying to tell me something, but I shouldn't trust it, right? I mean, it's everywhere, this contradiction in what he's trying to do, right? You can't tell me qualia is an illusion without using my qualia to tell me it's an illusion. It doesn't work. It will never work, this, right?
It's the objector's right that we've no procedure for correcting or qualifying these reports. There we've reached the limits of what we can say about our epistemic situation. But
Did
it's
he
a
say
mistake to
correcting reports? Now we're getting close to the 1 hour mark, but let's see. Correcting?
It is right that we've no procedure for correcting or qualifying these reports. There we've reached the limits of what we can say about our epistemic situation.
So we can't correct it. Okay. So it's like, oh, I would like to correct people, something like it. It seems like there's an implicit want there, right? It's far out, this.
But it's a mistake to infer from that there's nothing more to be said, and that these reports have to be treated as accurate descriptions of a private mental reality. Okay.
Okay, let's keep this one for the next part. I feel I have, at least deconstructed some core parts of his philosophy in this regard, right? So you should have I hope you have a decently good understanding of where I'm coming from and how I approach this and how I criticize this, right? So so far so good, right? At least. But getting close to the 1 hour recording mark here. Thank you for staying with me this far, and please share, like, and subscribe. Leave me a comment, and I'll do my best to answer. And if there's something you think I've missed or anything like that, please illuminate me, right? Otherwise, try the Discord server below. And otherwise, have a nice day. See you in the next one.